Hi everyone. I'm back here on this channel, and I'm actually recording this video because I wanted to actually continue making some content, creating some content, which would be helpful. Uh, I'm actually kind of hesitating as to how long this would be, but I want to actually just talk a little bit about something else that is not exactly related to the prior videos that I've made, but which I believe that those who find it relevant will probably just be able to relate to. So I'm gonna make another video later on about narcissists as con artists, okay? Because I mean they're all scammers and they scam you. Even if they do not actually get your money, they will scam you somehow. But today I'm going to talk about a little bit about something else, basically about why the social system, basically society in general, including religious institutions, such as church, whatever other religion you believe in, or if not church, other social institutions such as family services centers, family services centers, and count, and if not even the centers or the institutions, the people in it, including psychologists, psychiatrists, doctors, um, policemen, and many others. Why society has failed victims of abuse, especially of narcissistic abuse. Okay, I actually uh, believe that at one point in time, most of us have probably come across the case of the Hollywood actor now who is like, he's not really acting as regularly anymore. Johnny Depp, yes, he's virtually a legend. He's virtually a legend, as you'll remember. He got into a court case against his ex-wife, Amber Heard, on the grounds that she was defaming him. Yeah, and her claims of him being the abuser who battered her and used certain violence against her were unsubstantiated and groundless claims, which led to him losing uh, his important jobs in Hollywood, which he needed to stay on in the industry. Yeah. So as you all know, he has been victorious in his suit, but we know that at least on the basis of that, at least on the basis of the first part of that, the first case that he brought against the Sun, we know that there was an attempt to protect the Sun, the journalist from the Sun, for even despite that being gutter journalism and it's a tabloid and everything. He won his case though against Heard, despite his loss in the UK. So, but this kind of an incompatibility of the results between what happened in the UK in 2020 or 2021, 2020, and what happened later on in 2022, which was last year, around June. The verdict being given in June, early June, in the USA, in Virginia. It just attests to certain things about how the British media is actually trying very hard to flame Johnny Depp and claim that he's fighting a very uphill battle to try to make him drop that case. And then later on, after Amber Heard lost the case, they tried to backtrack and backpedal a little bit to claim that it's actually a day of defeat for feminist rights. And uh, those who know what is going on will know that this is a real case of trying to use certain social justice movements and abuse them to actually claim certain things which are not true. And okay, but to go, to move from this case onto why society has failed us as victims of narcissistic abuse. There are different reasons. I think that some of y'all might have come across the uh, work of Shahida Arabi, who's actually a creative writer of poetry, and she graduated with Columbia University masters in creative writing. She has also published poetry on the theme of abuse, but her volume being She Who Destroys the Dark. Yeah, fairy tales gone wrong. But on top of that, she has also published other books on the topic of narcissistic abuse. In one particular video, she has actually drawn attention to the idea of why society, the reason as to why society actually gaslights victims. Uh, the the one thing is that society tends to trivialize it, um, as she claims, and I do agree a lot with that. Trivializing the abuse can be on different fronts. You can just say, oh, maybe he or she is just a garden variety jerk or bitch. They're just being mean, or maybe they just had a hard time when they were young that led to them being like that. So there's that attempt on the part of society to humanize these abusers, to make them sound like they really have a reason to do that. But we know that abuse, no matter what, can never be justified, because it's actually destroying and breaking someone else's soul and spirit. And in the worst case scenario, I think that a lot of people don't get that some of those people in this very institutions which are meant to help other people, such as church, the police station, school, um, hospitals, clinics, instead of helping people, they actually help to further perpetuate the trauma that these victims and survivors feel. What do they do? Maybe they have a hand in it. They join that thing. The Korean drama series recently on Netflix, The Glory, actually has this particular part in the early flashback to what happened to the victim of abuse, Donglen. Moon Donglen, yes. It showed how her former teacher continued to perpetuate the abuse by constantly beating her. So every time he hits her, she'll just pick herself up and he continues hitting her again. So it's like a little bit like a doll, like that kind of a doll with that base that is stable. You keep hitting it, it goes out. So it was a little bit like a yo-yo thing. And it was a pretty disturbing scene because that man had no remorse. He was constantly wearing that gold watch, but he took it off before he hit her. And he kept on justifying it, saying, what's wrong with friends hitting each other? And don't you dare try to remind me that I have a son in university education who doesn't have friends hitting him. And of course, the karma comes back to him in the end when the son finds out 18 years later what his father was like. And of course, the son has something in terms of the psychological issue too. Kills the father, by lining up the living room, full of flowers which the father was allergic to, and causing him to spiral into dyspnea, which is basically breathing difficulty. The father dies without any help of any inhaler, and the son kicks it away, saying that the last thing you can do is to die as a father I respect. And of course, when the father's body is carted out by the ambulance, the son was crying. Just like crocodile tears. But the thing aside, we know that some of this The second reason why such society fails us again is that a lot of these people in the institutions who are supposed to help us, they are no different from the abusers. Yeah, they are abusers. Okay. Um, from my personal encounter, I mean, with people, I mean, in the setting of churches and I mean, police stations, things like that. I mean, you realize that these institutions are run by people who have no interest in helping you. Sadly, it's so. And or if not for the lack of interest in helping you, what they do is to actually uh, pick on you. Yeah, they pick on you. They'll ask you things like, why don't you just why didn't you just run away or leave? But we know that in all senses of logic and common sense, when people are in abusive situations, they are basically trapped. I mean, the best thing, the one and only best thing that this institution should be doing should be offering a place, a safe space for them to actually get out or to talk about what they have done, that they've gone through, so that they can escape and leave the situation. But instead of doing that, not only do they gaslight these victims and survivors, they actually further abuse them. I remember that I can say very honestly that I don't attend church as much as I used to. I attend a Korean church now, but if you were to ask me to attend a Singaporean church, no, I wouldn't do that because I mean, it's no offense to anyone. I mean, I still have friends in those churches, but I remember that when I was younger, I came from the background of this particular uh, church where the claim was that psychologists and psychiatrists are bogus. They belong to the devil, and if they don't belong to the devil, they are just yeah, they don't recognize the value of psychology and psychiatry. They think it's something from the devil, and their stereotype of psychology or psychiatry is basically a person lying on a couch and a person tell you go easy on yourself. Uh, this the irony is that particular church where I was at had members who actually committed spiritual abuse. What do I mean by spiritual abuse? It was a lot of this. I'm better off than you because I believe in the Bible and blah blah blah, and they'll throw out the quotes. Sometimes the quotes might be in the context, sometimes it's out of context, but the main purpose of those particular verses were not so much to show that the Bible is correct, but more to indicate their superiority to you. Yeah, that they're better than you. It's like a holier than thou attitude. So basically it's like, I'm going to go to hell because I didn't agree with you, and I believe that there are other ways to look at this thing, and yeah, I can't deal with this. This is actually really gaslighting in the final sense of the word. And yeah, so there's another thing that actually the third point that I wanted to talk about, why society and various social institutions have failed the victims of um, abuse, including narcissistic abuse, is that society no longer has I mean, most people in society, they're starting to lose a sense of what is actually evil and what is actually good. um, okay, I recently I'm actually reading a book. It's by this author Paul Levy, Levy. The title is actually dispelling, yeah, as in getting rid of, dispelling vertigo. Vertigo, Wetiko. So vertigo being the Cree word, yeah, the native Indian Cree word for like monster or some particular monster or the state of cannibalism. Paul Levy actually links it to the phenomenon of Maclellan egophrenia. Egophrenia, I think this is actually another parallel word to Maclellan narcissism. Yeah. So the idea is he actually used one particular phrase to describe this thing. Other than Maclellan egophrenia, it's also a me disease. He says that in the book that actually it has been consuming society for like years, for centuries. It's at the very core of what society is suffering from. And he narrates it with a particular story of this was it like a conference, yeah, conference or whatever, yeah, in which this person was trying to formulate this particular social policy. And at the policy, there was one lady who told him he was a policy, because that particular person, not Paul Levy, but the person he was referring to, being a policymaker, was told by one woman at the conference, the reason why all these things, all the policies are not working and is not helping society is because society has failed to understand what evil is. So yeah, I know it's a very hard thing to say, that like there is in our modern day approach, we talk so much about being rational, being scientific, and I have friends telling me, that in psychology, I mean, he's speaking from a scientific point of view, no such thing as a so-called evil or good exists. In psychology, everyone is like dysfunctional, everyone needs help, blah blah blah. In science, like for example, he was claiming that, in science, that there's still so little known about psychopathy, narcissism, and that even like, I mean, clinical psychologists like Dr. Ramani, who specializes in, I mean, she's pretty well known on YouTube, who specializes in narcissism and other uh, psychological disorders. She has said that narcissism is not actually, yeah, narcissism as opposed to narcissistic personality disorder is not actually a diagnosis. It's actually a relational style, yeah, a style of relating to other people, which is actually uh, dysfunctional. So the real problem is not so much with what Dr. Ramani has said, but with this whole rather, the rather so-called scientific or logical view that everything doesn't have a so-called uh, moral diagnosis or classification. So if you were to think about it, let's go back to the phenomenon of Nazi Germany. In Nazi Germany, that was precisely what the Nazis were doing. They were claiming that it was okay to actually experiment on humans. So they used the Jews to actually conduct experiments on them, and not just gassing them and killing them and trying to exterminate them. So we know that by the time, I think, by the time the Jewish pogroms started, and Hitler was actually targeting the Jews in across Europe, regardless of where they were in Europe, the whole population across the whole Europe, I mean, of Jews, was basically reduced from like millions to almost a few thousands. And yeah, that was how successful he was. And the claim was obviously that there was no right and wrong. It was perfectly right to do that because it was in the name of science and everything. So it's not, we know it's not right, but they keep on. I mean, this is what society is doing. They actually, there are people who were not Nazis, but who were also supporting or following what Hitler did. So, for example, we know that in the German Christian churches, they were filling the Jews. Yeah, they were filling them. They were not protecting them. They broke the rule of religious sanctuary. So those Jews who had converted to become Christians were not protected by the churches in Germany back then during the Second World War, and what they did was to follow what Hitler and the Nazis suggested. That is to refuse to acknowledge the baptism that the Jews who converted to Christianity had actually undergone. Yeah, so they were still to be regarded as Jews. They were supposed to be surrendered to Nazi Germany, to the authorities for persecution, regardless of their conversion. And we know that was not right, but they had failed to protect those people whom they should be protecting. And yeah, so that's the real problem when we remove that. The third issue is that there's this whole problem of the loss of the idea of what is evil. Yeah, Dr. Scott Peck in the third, I mean not third, in the book People of the Lie has said this himself, that he said that evil should be a diagnosis. Yeah, it's a very controversial thing coming from psychiatrist or someone in psychotherapist, but I really believe that, because he said that no good person will try, no good person being the a narcissist or someone who suffers from it on a malignant basis, um, should be given the right to actually break another spirit. But our society has been indulging them. We keep on indulging them because we lose a sense of what is right and wrong. We don't care about what is right and wrong. We just care about what is functional and what is scientific, what is logical. But in all honesty, it's not logical and it's not right either that someone is breaking another spirit and enjoying doing so, and that we stand by and watch. Or even with that, we even in the worst case scenario, we blame the victim and say that the victim brought it upon himself or herself. And it's also why I don't like to hear this. What did you do to cause him or her to behave like that? This is a very classic case of victim blaming. I hear it all the time from people, even people who are not narcissistic. They don't have a sense that victims don't bring it upon themselves in terms of the bullying or the abuse. Okay, so anyway, that's it for now. Okay, I'll get back later to another video when I'm more prepared and I'm more content and I know what to how to organize it. Okay, so I hope everyone has a good night when the weekend is coming. Okay, bye bye.